Hey everyone, welcome back. Brand new Take Aim podcast. As always, I'm your host, Brandon Hammonds. And this week we talk with Jacques Demoss from Shock Effect Products, and we talk about balancing deer nutrition, balancing deer health and wellness, and some of the nutritional aspects that go into that, from protein to high fats to sodium intake to calcium intake. You name it, it's all in this podcast. And thanks for Jacques for being part of the show today. And make sure you check out the great products that Shock Effect has. I truly believe Jacques knows more about growing big deer, big antlers than anybody else maybe in the entire country. So it's a great listen. Hope you guys enjoy. All right, boys and girls, we are live, and welcome to a brand new Take Aim podcast. And as always, I'm Brandon Hammonds, your host, and excited to have Jacques Demoss on from Shock Effect Products. And it's been a minute, Jacques, and I'm excited to have you back.
Well, thank you for having me. It's good to be back, and good hearing your voice again.
Yeah, for sure. You too, man. I know we were just talking offline, and it's really the talk of the town about coronavirus and everybody being sick, but it's a great time, especially with the social distancing, which is kind of part of the deer hunter's life. And in this part of the year, it's what we call growing season, and now is maybe the best time, and for many guys, it might be the only time in their lives they can spend more time working on farms, properties, and building up some of that health and nutrition in your deer herd. And, man, Jacques is one of the most knowledgeable guys when it comes to that, so I really wanted to pick Jacques' brain today and kind of just go through the ins and outs of what we know about health and nutrition from a deer's point of view, and what we should really be doing this time of year. So, Jacques, I know I just unloaded a lot on you, but we'll try to start somewhere in there.
Yeah, you're good. No, and you're right. We're this is a really rough time on everybody, financially, emotionally, being home, we're out of work, we're trying to work remotely. It's tough. But I tell you, if you put a positive spin on it, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity to really take some time, learn some new skills, learn some more information about, what we love to do in hunting and, husbandry of animals and, improving our property, improving our deer herds. I'm spending time doing product and development research for our company, taking some time doing some testing, and I find that I'm getting a lot of calls, a lot of emails from hunters and from land managers and deer farmers, et cetera, with ideas, things that they may not have had time to explore, but now they have a little extra time on their hands. And so it's a good time. So actually it's timely that we do this, and it also matches up with the growing season, like you said. So it's all good stuff. But no, right now we are at the peak. This is the magic time. Deer, for the most part, across the country already shed, and things are starting to green up. Temperatures are warming up. People are getting out, getting their food feeders out, their food plots and whatnot. And so deer nutrition is really the name of the game right now. So I get a lot of photos and emails from customers across the country daily. And some folks, deer are still hanging on to their antlers. Some of them, one side shed. And then I got some ties, like on the eastern seaboard, that they've already got 2 or 3 inches of growth. So it's kind of all over the place. But the common theme is, right now we need to take advantage and give these deer what they need to, one, be healthier, and two, ultimately, grow. And so that's the focus right now. That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it is, I don't know if you heard this, Jacques, from just out, like your social media feeds, but you kind of just alluded to it in what you said. Some of the customers got some of the info to you, but it seems like to me, I've heard the same thing, that some deer are holding on, some aren't. And this time of year, Jacques, is that true? I've always heard it's true that really just means that's a healthy deer, itself, that if it's holding on to antlers this long, that means that deer is just overall in really good, healthy shape. I believe that to be true, but I know you have a lot more experience seeing deer up close, so to speak, during both times of the growing and shedding season.
Yeah, and a lot of our data, is, taken from the deer farming industry. because, quite frankly, it's easier because we have deer in a captive pen, and we can observe them, we can test them, we can, look at their behaviors, look at what their bodies are doing, look at how they react to products and whatnot. But now, with the advent, more and more folks using trail cams being more, higher quality, lower cost, people are deploying more of them. So I'm getting just as much, empirical data from the field, and I'm starting to be able to build a database of comparable data that allows me to kind of, do some forecasting and some analysis on the wild side. And I'd say generally that's pretty true. Deer that's, in a healthier body condition, is going to probably hold on to their antlers a little longer. But some of it's genetics and some of it's, weather. And if you look at 10 different sites, you'll get 15 different answers, But I think I tend to think, looking at the pictures, both in the the data that we get from the wild deer side, and the data from the farm deer side, that the deer that really come in to come off of the winter and are going into the growing season in a better health condition tend to hold on to their antlers a little longer.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. So one thing I wanted to kind of start with, Jacques, is this time of year, and tell me if this changes throughout the year for the deer, but deer need, an ample amount of energy every day. And if you want, you can break down that energy for us, how they get it, and which intake is better. But how much of that daily intake is needed? And does that this time of year mean more than, let's say, in October or in the middle of the summer or in the winter? Or is it always that amount of food and nutrition, fiber, protein, is it always equal throughout the year? But I know we're kind of starting at the growing season today, but I think that's a really good maybe spot for us to start with.
Sure, yeah, and I think you're right. I mean, overall, their needs change throughout the year, and a lot of that is driven by one, the need to accumulate stores of energy and nutrients to be able to produce antlers, and then that taxes their system, during that 6-7 month, cycle, all the way down through, let's just pick a day, like say September 15th. They get their hard antler, they get their velvet off, and then, their need for energy, their needs for nutrients changes, because now, their activity level goes up because now they're ranging, now they're rutting, now they're, preparing for, to put body stores on before the winter. And then when they get into winter, the rut's over, now they're just surviving. They're trying to find food sources. They're, trying to find browse, wild mass crop, whatever they can, ag crops, whatever. So they, their energy, needs change then too. So it evolves up and down, throughout the year. Right now, for instance, deer are, obviously going into the antler growing state, which requires its own, has its own set of requirements. Deer, eat, mass growing acorns. They eat bark off trees. They eat dirt. They eat rocks. They eat all kinds of crazy stuff because their body is telling them that they need calcium. They need nutrients. They need, and not just your everyday, protein and forage type stuff. I mean, they need like specific things in their diet because they have this, that they're biologically processing all that bone on top of their head. And so they never really ever eat enough in the wild to provide an adequate source of nutrients and calcium and whatnot to produce that antler. So what they do is they actually start robbing their own skeletal structure. They basically go into a self-imposed state of osteoporosis. They borrow calcium and nutrients from their bones, their spinal column, their scapula, their shoulder bones, things like that, and they use that to distribute that up into the antler to be able to form it. And so they are constantly trying to refill that bucket, trying to refill that deficit. And then when September comes and they've finished out their bone, finished out their antler growth, and they've got their velvet off and whatnot, now they're in a situation where they have to go and, actively seek out sources to refill their stores because they've got to try to put back what they borrowed into their skeleton system. And what that does is it taxes their system. They're now having to try to refill that gap And depending on how successful they are, and a lot of that depends on your soil quality, what plant materials available, whatever their diet is in their region, it depends on what kind of condition that you find them come March or April of the next year when it's time to grow. So if they're really in a deficit position, if they never really were able to refill those reserves in their skeleton, then they're starting in the hole, basically. And it's going to ultimately affect their growth. And so weather and things like that have a lot to do with that. But, how many times have you seen a deer that was like a really solid 8-point, you're expecting to be that nice, big, solid 10-point next year, and he just kind of stays static or even kind of goes backwards? A lot of that can just be he never got enough to eat or the right things to eat to really make him develop. And so this is where the supplemental feed really comes into play, because you can fill in those gaps and make their life a lot easier by providing, targeted nutrition, targeted nutrients at the right time of year to kind of, supplement nature a little bit. Because if they're getting that in their diet, whether, a combination of, say, food plots and ag crops and wild browse and then a supplemental feed program, then boom, all of a sudden they don't have to work as hard. They don't have to go as far. They don't have to do as much. They come into the growth cycle in a better state of condition, and boom, now they can devote more energy to growth and less to just trying to survive, And so that's where the supplemental feed program really comes into play, because you can really kind of lighten their load and you get better results because of it.
It makes sense. What's hard to do, Jacques, is, what you just mentioned means you have to really know what's going on foliage-wise on your property and what's palatable, what's not. Overall, Jacques, do you have a good kind of equation to say this is the amount of fiber, protein, vitamins, and minerals, and then from there, as you're supplementing, the deer will ultimately choose, or do you run that, on a timetable wise throughout the year? Like, we're going to do fiber, this time of year, or protein this time of year, or minerals this time of year. How do you do it, or subscribe to do it?
Well, there's a lot of schools of thought, and I guess, I come to it as because I raise whitetail and red stag and elk, and I spend a lot of time, with both, because our company, is, a big chunk of our company is producing supplements for the deer farmers, elk farmers, and whatnot, exotic farmers. But, another and the biggest, fastest growing chunk of our company is actually providing, supplements for the wild deer. But I find in my years of experience doing this and just talking to folks that, feeding wild deer it's not done well often. People have kind of misgivings about when to use things and how and why and whatnot, and I think they're kind of missing the boat. For years and years and years, everybody's like, well, I'll just throw out some corn and that's good enough. And now we know better. Obviously corn is a good attractant. It's a source of quick energy for deer, and there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't bring a whole lot to the table from a nutritional standpoint. But the one thing I would say that people probably do wrong the most is mineral. A lot of people, and I get it a lot because I get calls from stores and feed stores and whatnot all the time that want to carry our products, and they're like, I'll say, well, I got this mineral, we got this product. Well, it's not the right time of year for mineral. And I'm like, well, explain that to me. And the way I equate that is, it'd be like you taking a multivitamin only from July till October. And then the rest of the year, you're like, well, my body doesn't need it. Well, I understand kind of where they're coming from, but, deer have a need for minerals year-round. Now, they may not hit it as actively during some of those times when they're not actively growing or whatnot, but they need it 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So I keep mineral on the ground all the time. And and why not? Because let's face it, no matter what brand of mineral you use, it is the most cost-effective feed supplement out there. You can stretch it. You can, you might not even have to put it down to refresh your site for a couple, 3, 4 months. And a few bags of mineral a year, that's pretty cheap insurance that your deer are getting, proper nutrition levels. But it's only the one piece of the puzzle. You you can benefit deer. You can make them healthier by giving them mineral, but if you really want to, grow them and really provide them the full nutritional support and really try to get the most out, mineral is just the first step, So to answer your original question, I don't worry so much about the fiber because they have so much availability of fiber in their wild diet. So plant stalks, grasses, things like that. So they get a lot of fiber in their diet. So I don't spend a whole lot of time worried about that. Protein is more my concern area, and that's another area where I see hunters and land managers kind of miss the boat a little bit. Everyone is so focused on protein, and they want just these amazing levels of protein. And I'll tell you what, you can do as much damage with protein as you can benefit, and because the deer just don't need that much protein all the time. And like for instance, I usually recommend if you're like, for instance, if you put together like a little feed blend, like what we call textured feed, just as an example, like corn, cracked corn, roasted soybeans, maybe a protein pellet, a mineral, things like that. You can safely grow and support health on deer very well with a protein level in that 18 to 22% range. But I routinely have folks call me, and they're running, some kind of insanely high, 30-something, percent protein. And during the times of the year when the deer really don't need it, you're burning them up. It'd be just like a human that has, you see this in a lot of these competitive bodybuilder guys that years and years and years and years are just pounding these massive high loads of protein. And then later they start having problems with their kidneys and things like that. And same thing with deer. You can burn a deer up by giving them, too hot of a feed blend. So it's better to just be nice, middle of the road, a solid feed ration, either like an Antler Max pellet or something like that has some good stuff in it, or blending up a kind of a textured blend, giving them some commodity stuff, corn, cracked corn, soybean, roasted soybeans, protein pellet. There's all kinds of stuff. People, cottonseed meal. All kinds of stuff people use. And a lot of it's regional. But just, a nice little 18 to 22% protein pellet is really all they need, and you can feed that year round. And but the other area that we haven't talked about, and it doesn't really get a lot of attention, is fat. Fat is vital in a deer's diet because it's not only a source of energy, but it's also what I refer to as kind of a soluble vehicle that gets nutrition into their body. And unfortunately, there are not a lot of commercially available feed for deer that have really nice, acceptable levels of fat, and it's not their fault. There's only so much fat you can put in a pellet before it won't compress together anymore and it falls apart. So, somewhere in that 6 to 8% range, and then that's about all you're going to get. So you got to find that source somewhere else. And so ultimately, if you can, you'd like to have your deer at a maybe 9 to 12% fat content ratio. And what that does, it provides some energy. It provides that, like I said, that vehicle, that soluble fat that gets that energy and those nutrients into their body. But it also, you want that deer to have a little heavier body condition because you want them not only to have a heavy antler growth and you want them to grow and all that, but you got to have body condition too, because now as soon as they put that antler on, their body condition going into the winter and into the rut is kind of going to dictate what they look like coming out on the backside, and ultimately that'll have an effect on what they look like next year. So it all plays together,
Jacques, now one thing that it sounded like you kind of answered probably this question already, but when you were talking about the protein, is protein something that is better with something else as you feed it? I know you just mentioned all these deer or protein pellets, but is it better to run it with, for lack of a better term, like sunflower or just corn? Is the intake better, or do you run it with some fat or with some mineral?
Yeah, the answer is kind of all of the above. I like textured blends. I like running pellet with like corn and sunflower seeds or things like that. And I in my personal blend, and I can actually give you this recipe, and if you want, you can post it to the show notes. I actually include soybean oil in my feed. I mix it in at about 25, 30 pounds per ton. And the reason I do that is the fat, and the soybean oil obviously has a great taste, great attraction content, but it also provides those omega fatty acids, and it ups your fat intake while it acts as an attractant. But it also acts as a binder. It kind of makes everything kind of stick together. And if you do it in the right proportions, you don't have any problems in your gravity feeders or your troughs or anything like that. So to answer your question, I like putting protein with something else because it kind of levels off your production. You want them to have a consistent consumption rate, and that's one of the things I see a lot when customers call, particularly people that have never used our products before. They'll say, hey, I'm going to go completely stop what I'm doing. I'm going to do what you do, and then I'm going to use your products. I'm like, well, don't do that because you've already got something going. Your deer are eating it. They like it. And if it's, a decent ration, if they're eating it, it's a pretty good, offering, then just mix our stuff into it. Don't go hog wild and try to change everything. Just, wild deer, as you know, can be very picky. They can be very edgy. And if you go and change something all of a sudden, all at once, it might be a week or two or three or, before they come back to it. So just kind of incorporate it, but don't go crazy with it. But to answer your original question, yeah, I like feeding protein with something else, either like a grain blend or seeds or something, because it does promote more and more consistent consumption, which is kind of the key.
Yeah, for sure. And I know that, and I forgot to mention the soybean oil. I've heard about from you, I've heard previous things that is very effective. As far as getting back to the fat real quick, Jacques, what are we looking at as far as the daily percentage or the percent we want to mix in fat with? Is it 80%? Is it 30, 40, 10? How much fat does a deer really need to, like you said, help that delivery system of all the other goods?
Based on what we're looking at, I'm thinking somewhere in that 9 to 12, maybe 15%. You don't want to go overboard. You don't want fat deer. Obviously, because you want, to have a real healthy body condition. But we're seeing from our captive studies and also from our empirical studies on the wild that 9 to 12% range is kind of in that sweet spot where they really start to get some effect. And, I've even had guys that fed our products and, like, say, one year they said, I'm going to save a little money. I'm not going to feed the soybean oil this year. I'm going to use something else like molasses or something like that as a binder. And not that that's bad. It's just you're not getting that benefit. And their deer just didn't perform. They grew, but just not like they had before. And then the next year they went back to using the soybean oil, and boom, they got a better result. So it's a small step, but that fat content is huge. It makes a big difference. It really does.
So we've got fat, we've got protein. What else? We did talk about mineral, Jack, but we really didn't go too in depth. So let's talk about mineral. I don't know if you call the C-cal part of your mineral and the calcium, but let's go through the rundown on the minerals. And I know what you alluded to earlier about the stores. We know the stores are wrong. We should be doing mineral now and throughout the year. And that's one of the reasons the stores, so many people, I don't know why the trend's always been in the stores to sell mineral in September. It drives me nuts when we need it right now. But let's talk about what's needed in that mineral and how long does an 8-pound bag last, or a 20-pound bag, or however you want to break it down, Jacques.
Yeah. Mineral's important, like I said. And again, it's your cheapest option. It is the easiest to do. And so, why not? And I use mineral two different ways. I use it in a traditional ground application where I go and I, rake out a little 3x3 or 4x4 spot, depending on where I am, kind of clear the debris, put an 8-pound bag down, and then kind of work it into the soil. And then I just kind of, whenever I'm checking my cameras, I look to see, what the consumption rate is on it. And if I need to refresh it, great. If not, I'll go through the next week or whatever. But I also mix mineral into my feed, and because I kind of want to force feed it to them. I want them to get more of it in their feed. I'd like to get more of it in them than they're going to eat on their own. And so it's a little sneaky trick to add mineral to your feeders in your feed, and then they're gonna consume more of it, and you're gonna get a better result. And it, and most mineral has, salt in it, whatnot, so it's kind of an attractant. So it, makes it taste better, and they'll eat a little more of it consistently. So it has that, that effect too. But so that's where a lot of people go wrong. They only put it on the ground, or they put it on the ground, but they only use it certain times of the year. So if you can add it and keep it available to them year round, you will benefit. You will benefit from that. But you can also add it to their feed, and a lot of people don't do that. And our mineral is a little different. Our mineral is it's not like a fine sand like a lot of mineral. Ours has actually got a little flake to it, a little bit different texture. And the reason we do it that way is that, one, it obviously works fine in the traditional ground application, but because it's a little coarser, it also mixes really well and kind of binds well with your feed. Put it in with feed, and you can kind of use it both ways and get double bang for your buck. But as far as consumption, it varies from place to place. We sell our mineral in 8, 25, and 50-pound bags. I have one guy where a 50-pound bag will last him all year. I have one guy a few customers that 50-pound bag a month. It just depends on how many sites you have and how hard they're hitting it. There's a lot of guys that, come from hunting ground where they just don't have very good soil, and you're going to see deer pound mineral in those areas more than so than you would see in other areas. But one of the reasons that kind of sets our mineral apart is that ours is probiotic based. You're not going to find other minerals on the market that do that. And two, ours has very low sodium content as far as the market. Ours has max 30% salt. And the reason we do that is that salt is a limiter. Anyone who knows anything about the cattle industry will know that, when cattlemen put out mineral for their cows, they mix salt with it because they want to, when the cows get their limit of salt, they'll just turn off, because otherwise they'll sit there and eat the whole thing in one sitting. So salt is a limiter. Deer need it. It's a mineral. It has its benefits, but, a lot of mineral producers out there, it's also cheap and it's filler. And so they can, put a whole bunch of salt in their mineral, and the deer come, because there's a lot of salt, the deer come eat a little bit of it, and everybody's like, oh, wow, that's a great mineral. Well, not really, because it doesn't have that much nutritional value. So what we did was we were able to keep the attraction, keep the taste, keep them coming in, but for every percentage of salt you take out, that's more nutrition you can actually put in the bag. And so we've had a very effective, very, very successful run with this mineral, and, we're not missing the salt. And because you have the low sodium, they're going to eat more of it, and you can mix it in your feed, and it won't be a limiter, and so it's effective. It works real well. And then to answer the other part of your question, you want to try to also get some chelated minerals into their bloodstream, into their diet, because the absorption rate, you want to have a mineral that is highly absorbable. Obviously you want, ultimately we're shooting for 100% food utilization, but you want to try to get there as much as you can. When we developed our mineral, we actually did blood testing on captive deer, and we would blood draw them at various times throughout the year to see what their blood levels were, and see what they were deficient in and what they needed. Certain times of the year they needed this, or certain times of the year they needed that. And so we devised this mineral to address those gaps. So they're getting what they need in the right percentages. And then we also have another product that you alluded to. It's our C-Cal, which is a calcium supplement. And that opens up a whole new discussion. But it's obviously, vital to their development. But it's like the next step after me. So I think we probably need to discuss that probably separately.
Sure. Jacques, now with the minerals, how close does the mineral get us from what you said kind of in the beginning of the podcast? How close does it get us away from the deer itself? Is it the thyroid, or what did you say steals the calcium from the bones? But the mineral that you're using, how much of that gets us away from it actually stealing from its deer's own self to put into its antlers? I'm assuming that mineral has to alleviate a lot of that problem.
It does. And we work very hard to super concentrate all of our products. So we try to make everything we can as strong as we can so that it addresses the way that wild deer eat. On a farm deer, that deer is responsible. I'm responsible for 100% of the nutrition that deer takes in. And so in that regard, I know exactly what they're eating. And they'll sit there and, eat at the trough just like a dog will out of a bowl. But in the wild, we can apply that same nutritional science, but we have to address the differences in the way that wild deer eat. And so a wild deer is going to come and hit it just for a few minutes, but it might come back 3 times or 4 times a day, or it might only come back 4 times a week or whatever. So we need to make sure that deer gets as much nutrition in every bite that he takes in as we can. And so that's why one of the reasons we run everything so concentrated. But the mineral does act upon their thyroid. It does affect how their body, detours nutrient. And so anytime they can take it in and process it and make it available in their bloodstream, that's less that they have to borrow from their system, and that's year round. And so right now that's why it's key to have mineral down, and that's why I always scratch my head why stores don't push mineral right now, because there's not a time that they don't need it more than right now.
Yeah, it blows my mind too. It's a lack of knowledge on the retail side is what it is. Probably a lack of not even caring, to be honest. They just know that when they put it on the shelves in September, guys that aren't educated are buying it like crazy, and they're just not willing to change that formula. But I'm with you, Jack. It drives me wild that right now I can't go anywhere and find mineral anywhere. I mean, you just can't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough. And if you do find a mineral, it's usually a cow mineral, and then you're right back into the high sodium stuff, and you're into levels that really aren't that appropriate for deer. So yeah, it's a problem, and it's just, and like you said, it's an educational issue.
Yeah, it is for sure. So, Jack, before we go, I kind of just want to run through some of the shock effect products and kind of talk about when we should be using these. But if you want to start with that, we can. But like I know we have Antler Maximizer, pellets, we have Mineral Booster and minerals. Tell us how that works. We have the CCAL, and just kind of throughout the year, for us hunters, how we should kind of time-wise use those products. And again, one of the reasons I'm such a big fan of shock effect is if you've listened to Jacques throughout this podcast, he's told you several times that they're raising deer, elk, red stag. The data that Jacques can take in compared to some guy putting salt in a bag in his garage is completely two different things. And to have that kind of data and just be in touch every day with the health and nutrition side of deer and seeing how this works, if it works on that side, it has to work on this side. And it's just fascinating, Jacques, that you get that opportunity, and this is practically the only product on the market for us to use in this manner.
Yeah, it is. And like I said, when I bought the company, we made a big push to get onto the wild deer side because nobody was utilizing the potential of supplemental feeding, the probiotics and things like that. And because, like you said, if you can grow them behind the fence, you can grow them out of the fence. I mean, deer are deer. You just got to address it. And we've done that. We've done it successfully for years. And it's really just an educational issue. So let me kind of run through what we are kind of our flagship products and like what we offer. Our flagship product is a product called Antler Maximizer. We try to name our products basically what they do, and to make it easier. So what this does, this maximizes your deer's genetics, maximizes your deer's potential growth, and it does it a couple of ways. It's a probiotic base, a very effective probiotic. And what the probiotic does is it increases the deer's food utilization. It'll take the amount of food that they digest, that they take in, and ramp it up significantly so that they can extract more nutrition out of everything they eat. And that's everything that you feed them. That's everything your neighbor feeds them. That's everything they're eating on ag crops, wild mass crop, wild browse, whatever, what have you. Everything they're eating, they're going to extract more out of that. So as a result, they're going to be healthier, they're going to be bigger. The probiotics also provide immune support. It provides, gut health. It just provides, overall health. It allows them to be more resistant disease, more resistant to injury, keep their body condition up. All the benefits, just like probiotics in humans. The second mechanism of the maximizer is the fact that it increases blood flow to the antler. And if you can increase the vascularization, if you can increase the blood flow to the antler, you're going to have a bigger antler. And this product does that. It increases blood flow to the antler greatly. And so fed consistently from, say, now through, you're going to get much better health response, much better food utilization, much better nutrition levels, and you're going to get more blood flow, so you're going to get growth. And so we make that product, well, actually just about every product we make in a pellet and a powder. The pellet is useful if you're feeding like strictly a pellet ration, like a Antler Max or a Record Rack or something like that. And the powder is, which is my personal favorite, is fed if you're going to feed like a textured blend, like Big Time, that product that they make, that pre-stacked feed, something like that. You could fix the powder with it. You just need to have something a little sticky in it to make the powder, kind of bind with everything. And that's one of the reasons we use soybean oil to make that connection, make that stick. And we sell those in 5, 10, and 20, and 50-pound buckets, and you feed it at 10 pounds per ton. And again, that's going back to us trying to make everything as super concentrated as we can. One 20-pound bucket, if you feed it at the 10-pound per ton rate, it's going to treat 4,000 pounds of feed. And so,
that's a lot.
we try to help it out. We try to make it as cost effective and overall as effective as we can. And that's one way we get that. Now, the next product is a companion product. It's called C-Cal, and it is a pharmaceutical grade coral calcium mixed with chelated mineral. And again, in a powder and a pellet, you feed it the same rate, 10 pounds per ton. And it is the perfect companion because what it does, because it is pharmaceutical grade, it is absorbed very readily into their body, into their bloodstream. And with that increased blood flow to the antler, well, that mineral that's now in their bloodstream is going to be deposited directly into the antler. So what you're going to have is a denser, heavier antler that is less prone to break off, less prone to chipping. How many times have you seen a deer at the end of the season? You're like, oh man, and he turns his head and boom, he's got eye guard missing, or he broke off a tine or something like that. So it's vital, but it also serves another purpose that oftentimes gets overlooked, and that is, again, what we alluded to at the beginning of the podcast, is that deer go into kind of an osteoporosis state. They rob mineral from their bones. And so if you can put that back into their diet, they can divert energy elsewhere. So if they are filling the bucket, as I like to say, and they are filling their deficit, then more energy can be dedicated to antler growth. So by providing them calcium, you're going to get more bone growth just because of the energy diversion. But also, let's say they're on the product and you feed that, and you can feed the calcium product year round. You only want to feed the maximizer during the active growth cycle, but you can feed the C-Cal year round if your game laws provide for it. But pardon me. But if they are on calcium year round, the next, let's say next February when they shed, and March, April when they start putting their antler on, well, guess what? There is no deficit. So they can divert that energy to growth. So it's a cost-effective product. It's very effective. It's good for them, but it has some other side effects, good side effects. So that's that product. And then we make our mineral. We talked about that. We sell that in 8, 25, and 50-pound bags. We also make a mineral booster, which is popular. If you have a mineral blend that you like, that you're already comfortable with, you mix it up yourself or whatever, and you don't want to change it, but you want to kind of up its game a little bit, so to speak, you can buy this 2-pound bag of mineral booster, and it'll treat 50 pounds of mineral. And what it does is it kind of injects the probiotic effect into your minerals. It kind of doesn't make it as good as our mineral, but it definitely makes it better than most other store-bought minerals. Pardon. And then we have some off-season products. Certain states don't allow hunting anytime during the hunting season. Feeding anytime during the hunting season, but certain states like Ohio and things like that do. So we have a product called Equalizer, And basically, it's all the benefits from the probiotic and whatnot, but without the components to promote antler growth. So you can feed it to your bucks, your does, spawns. What it does just provides all the benefits. Pardon me, my scientists are killing me. But it provides the immuno support, the body condition, the food utilization, all that. All during the times of the year when they need it. If you come off of the Maximizer, say mid-August, now they're facing rut and winter and food scarcity and things like that. So if you can legally do it in your area, you can mix this into their feed, and it'll provide them better nutritional support during those harsh times. And that's about it from the wild deer side. We have a whole slew of products, for deer farming, fawn care products and things like that. But as far as application to the wild deer side, that's kind of the toolbox. That's what you can expect. And like I said, I've got more time on my hands now than I ever have. So if folks want to reach out to me and talk deer nutrition, maybe they don't have a feed program or they have one and they want to see how to improve it or they want to learn a little bit more about it, more than happy to reach out to me on my cell or reach out via email. That's what we're here for. And might as well utilize this downtime to benefit your operation.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why we did this podcast today, to see, who we can help out and what we can learn. And one thing I wanted to ask real quick, Jacques, before I let you go is what was the ratio on the C-Cal per tonnage, or how do you use it? As a 5-pound bucket for 50 pounds of mineral, or how do you suggest you use the C-Cal?
Yeah. We actually have calibrated the C-Cal and the Maximizer to work together, and to make it user-friendly, we just set them both. We calibrated them at the same feed rate, 10 pounds per ton. So whatever amount you're feeding to the max, you just double it. You match it with the C-Cal. With the C-Cal. And I just realized when you asked me that, I didn't answer your question. On the Maximizer, you feed this product, like say from depending on your area and when they shed. But just a rough approximation, somewhere in the late February, early March area, you kind of want to start thinking about that. Maybe feed it going into now. I mean, now is really the magic time when you really need to have it in them, but you can start early if you want to. And you want to feed that roughly through August 15th. You could feed it longer without causing any ill effects or anything, but by then you've got all the majority of your bang through your buck. And so August 15th is kind of our arbitrary cutoff. You want to kind of pull the Maximizer off around that time. C-Cal, you can feed it year-round. And then, like I said, the Equalizer, you can incorporate that when you take the Maximizer off and just feed it, say, from August 15th back to the next March or April, whatever. And it is actually fed at 5 pounds per ton. So you can actually feed a winter blend that doesn't break the bank.
Yeah, that's very doable, and especially for, like you said, the way it's made. It's super concentrated. I mean, the C-Cal and all, and the what was the other one, Jacques? Forgive me. At 10 pounds a ton, Maximizer. Yep. You're talking a ton, 2,000 pounds. So I mean, you can get one bucket of both those products, and even in a high deer rate area, you guys can get that to last the whole year, which is very doable. And especially right now when we have nothing but time on our hands, it'd be a great way to figure out exactly how much tonnage or pounds per week you can do to get you through the summer to all the way through hunting season. But a lot of really good info today, Jacques, and hopefully I asked enough questions that were quality for you today, because I know you're a smart man.
No, you're good. I think we got out the points we needed to get. Just right now, the biggest thing, and I think it's coming along. In the 6 or 7 years I've been doing this with Shock Effect, the quality of knowledge, the input I'm getting from hunters and laymen and whatnot is getting better and better and better all the time. So there's more information out there that's better information, and people are learning that, they can have an impact on their deer herd, both their health and their size, and it's not just, traditional management practices. I mean, you can supplemental seed and you can have a direct impact on their results. But I think ultimately what the benefit is that we're getting away from that mindset where they only think about their deer when it's time to hang their stand. More and more people are thinking about them year round, and that's when you really get to the sweet spot where you can really have a positive effect on their health and their size. Because right now is when you're going to, reap, the stuff you do today is what's going to feed the rewards you reap during hunting season.
Exactly. Yeah, it changes your benefits later down the road, and I've always been a big advocate of feed a mineral, and it's something that you can take part in every single week, whether it's checking the camera from the feed and mineral you've already put out, or in a situation like mine where the farmers crop every ounce of ground. I can't do food plots, so this gives me my direct, like I am contributing result without having to turn ground and getting a tractor that's not available to me. So, and I know I'm not the only one in that situation, so it really makes me feel good that I'm doing something for the overall herd health. That's a big one to me. I mean, I love big antlers, and I want to shoot big deer, and that's a great byproduct from shock effect, but just having healthy deer herd and being able to know that I'm going to have a healthy herd for the future to hunt is pretty priceless to me. But Jacques, thanks so much for being here today. I definitely think shock effects is pretty much the future of whitetail nutrition, and I can't wait to do it again, Jacques. I know you're always running tests and data, and new products will be down the road, I'm sure.
Yep. We're actually testing. I'm waiting. We're going to run it for one more season. I'm not going to bring something to market that I'm not 100% sure of. But we're actually testing a new feed block that actually has all of our products in it in the proper ratios, and so we're testing different sizes, different shapes, different configurations and whatnot. And so it's going to be a probiotic feed block that will promote growth that, maybe for folks that don't have a feeder or can't use feeders or it just doesn't work logistically for them, this will be something that can go and roll out off the bike and put it in a spot, maybe go to other mineral, sites or whatnot. So we're testing that, and so that's kind of my focus right now to see how that produces results over this season. And so we got good results on it last year, so I'm running that again. And if that pans out, then we're going to start getting that to the market as well. So we're kind of excited about that.
Yeah, heck yeah, that sounds great, and super convenient as well. And I'd be looking forward to using that product for sure. But Jacques, I believe it's shockeffectwhitetail.com they can find you, and on Instagram as well. You can type in Shock Effect, and I think it's shock_effect_products on Instagram. Yeah. But I will make sure to leave Jacques' info in the show notes. And Jacques, anything else?
Nope. And like I said, I'll send you a copy of the recipe. And it's not the end-all, be-all. It's just something that's proven effective. And you can just kind of use it as a template. You can change it any which way you want. But it just kind of gives you an idea and maybe put some context to what we're talking about. And I'll send that to you so you can put it in the show notes. And I also have a schedule that I send out to customers that shows, what products to use at what time of the year and in what percentages. And so it kind of maybe make a little sense. I know with me, I deal with this every day, and so sometimes I forget to slow down and kind of like drinking out of a fire hose with all this data and all this information. So this might give them an opportunity to kind of look at it at their leisure and kind of take it all in.
Absolutely, yeah, that'd be great. I'm sure. I know I'd appreciate it, and a bunch of people would as well. So thanks so much, Jacques, and look forward to doing this again.
Good talking to you. Stay safe.
You too, buddy.